Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. As we all know, Italian food is perhaps one of the most well-known cuisines in the world. And today we're going to be cooking one of the most well-known Italian dishes, Bolognese. And to make it, we're going to be following one of YouTube's most popular Italian cooking channels, Vincenzo's Plate.
I'm going to combine both recipes and make the ultimate Bolognese ever.
Ultimate is a pretty bold adjective. I wonder if there's a vegetarian version of this dish.
Half kilo of pork, half kilo of beef.
My local grocery store conveniently sells these pre-blended packages of beef and pork. They both come in at a little over £1 per package, which is close enough to a half kilo.
I love veal, so if you love veal, I would say 300 grams of beef, 200 grams of veal.
None of my local grocery stores even sell veal, so I'm gonna go with 300 grams of beef and 200 grams of beef.
100 grams of pancetta. This is the secret ingredient that Marco told me.
Okay, before you judge my pre-packaged, pre-cooked pancetta, I swear I tried to find actual pancetta at the deli, but this was the one day where they sold out.
1 brown onion chopped into pieces.
In case you didn't know, brown onion is just another word for yellow onion.
2 celery sticks chopped into pieces. 3 carrots chopped into pieces.
I think I might need to sharpen my knife. And if you're wondering why my table is so wobbly, it's because I'm literally cooking on an IKEA desk.
1 bottle of Italian passata, 100 grams of tomato paste, 400 grams of peeled tomatoes, a small can.
To be honest, I'm a bit skeptical of the need to add 3 different forms of tomatoes to the exact same recipe. Like, tomato paste itself is just tomato, but with most of the water cooked out of it. I feel like you could accomplish the exact same flavor profile by just using more tomato paste and adding some water. But since it's not my recipe, we'll just do what Vincenzo does.
1 standard glass of red wine. You can also use white wine if you want a more delicate sauce.
I'm not really a wine drinker, and so I actually had to go out purposefully to buy this bottle of wine. My local grocery store actually has a dedicated wine person, and when I asked him which wine would be good for cooking, he recommended this one because it was relatively inexpensive. Apparently, it's a blend of Cabernet and Merlot. I'm usually not a fan of using alcohol in my recipes, not because I'm opposed to it, but because it requires me to show my ID, which then requires me to interact with a stranger. I was also curious how much a glass of wine weighs, and apparently it weighs about 400 grams.
1 mug of full cream milk, but this is optional. If you don't want to use milk, you don't have to use it.
I don't have any fresh milk, and so I'm just going to use the equivalent amount of milk powder that would be used to make 1 glass of milk, which is about 30 grams.
Extra virgin olive oil.
I'm just going to put the olive oil directly in the pot because I assume that's where it's going to go anyway.
First thing to do is to mince the pancetta. You can use a knife or the blender.
In the spirit of Italian cooking, I'm going to do things the hard way, even though it's completely unnecessary and probably objectively worse.
First thing to cook is the pancetta. But what we do is we put a little bit of oil, and now we add the pancetta.
To be honest, I wonder if the pre-cooked pancetta makes that much of a difference, since this is all going to get cooked down anyway.
Now we add onion and celery. Carrots. We're going to cook the sofrito for about 10 minutes.
And here we have the foundational flavor of Western European cuisine.
Now I like to put the lid on, so the steam helps to cook a sofrito better.
Putting the lid on helps the vegetables to soften more quickly.
We're gonna cook it about 2 more minutes before we add the meat. So let's put a splash of red wine.
I wonder if this step is really necessary, since all of the red wine is going to end up in the same pot anyway.
And the wine will help to tenderize the sofrito and get everything ready for the meat to join.
Nothing against Vincenzo, but I'm a bit skeptical of this explanation. But we'll do it since he does it in his video.
And now we cook the meat. We don't need to cook the meat too much. We just need to change the color to gray.
A lot of online Bolognese recipes will tell you that you have to brown the meat before you add it to the pot. And while you can certainly do it as a personal choice, the traditional recipe actually recommends not browning the meat, specifically to preserve the texture. Browned meat has a tendency to form clumps that don't break apart even after long cooking times. And so apparently, if you choose not to brown the meat, it gives you a smoother sauce-like consistency.
Now that the meat became nice and gray in color, we add the rest of the wine.
Now that I'm looking at it, I think my glass of wine is a bit bigger than Vincenzo's, but it's probably not a big deal.
This is the moment where we start putting salt and pepper.
I forgot this step, but I'll just add it later.
It's been about 10 minutes that we cooked the meat. As you can see, the meat is beautiful.
I wish someone would compliment me the same way Vincenzo compliments his meat.
We add the tomato paste.
Okay, now that I'm looking at it again, I think I'm also using more tomato paste than Vincenzo. I guess our final result will just have more tomato flavor.
This is the other liquid we're gonna use, okay? So, tomato passata.
Like I said before, passata is basically just a tomato paste that's not cooked and still has most of its water, so I feel like you could just get away with using one or the other. Also, a nice tip is that since we're going to be cooking down the sauce anyway, it doesn't hurt to use a bit of water to clean out the rest of the bottle.
The final ingredient is the peeled tomatoes.
And here we have the third variation of tomato.
From now, we're going to cook this sauce for about 4 hours and stir every half an hour.
And now comes the waiting. I also realized here that I forgot to add the salt and pepper, and so I'm adding it now. In the future, I want to invest in a spice grinder, but since I don't currently have one, I'm just going to use some pre-ground black pepper.
There are two cooking styles of Bolognese. One with a lid, one without. When the lid is not on, the water will kind of evaporate, so you need to add more liquid.
I'm going to give this suggestion a try, although I don't think it's going to work with my specific pot.
Let's see how the sauce looks. Can you see how wet the sauce is?
And so after cooking the sauce for a little while with the lid on, you can definitely tell that the sauce is still drying up. Since the lid on method isn't working for me, I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way and continue to add water as needed. Halfway through the cooking process, I actually had to step out of the house for a few hours. And so just to be safe, I had to leave it off the heat. I don't think it's going to affect the final results, so hopefully it'll be fine.
Now take off the lid, no more lid. And we're going to cook the sauce for an extra hour. Final hour.
Since the lid method didn't end up working for us anyway, this final step doesn't really make a difference, and we're just gonna cook it the exact same way we were cooking it before, except we're not gonna add any water. Also, you can see that even though I'm cooking it with the lid on, I'm getting a ton of splatter, which annoys me because I know I'll have to clean it up later. Looking at the state of my lid, I couldn't imagine cooking this with the lid off the entire time.
We're going to taste a little bit of sauce. We need to see if we need more salt. We need to see if it needs the milk.
The sauce is now pretty much at the consistency I think it needs to be, and so like any good cook, we're going to do a few taste tests. The sauce is very meaty, which is a good thing, and the vast majority of the acidity from the tomatoes has cooked off. As expected, since we didn't add a ton of salt beforehand, the sauce is a bit bland. But like always, it's better to be undersalted than oversalted, since we can just add some more salt now.
It's not necessary, but I believe a little touch, a little splash of milk, just like that, will make a sauce more delicate.
Because I'm using milk powder, I decided to mix it with a bit of hot water to form a paste, so that hopefully it incorporates more easily into the sauce. After adding the milk, I decided to give it a taste, and I think the milk seems to help balance the acidity coming from the tomatoes.
What am I going to do with this leftover sauce? Plastic containers.
To be honest, usually I prefer glass containers because plastic containers have a tendency to absorb the smell and color of the things you put in them.
Now we're going to cook the pasta.
And finally, after 4 hours of cooking, we can finally get to the main dish. Usually I prefer long, flat-shaped pasta, but since I don't have any of that, I'm just going to use penne.
The pasta is ready. Let's put it straight in the sauce.
When it comes to pasta, I usually like to keep everything in one pot to avoid needing to clean another pan. And so I usually just strain my pasta and then add the sauce directly into the same pot.
I want to use a wooden spoon to mix this up.
And I'm going to use this silicone spoon with a wooden handle. And now, after mixing the pasta thoroughly, we can finally taste the final result. I wonder if we're missing anything.
No! It's missing a very important ingredient, the Parmigiano Reggiano.
That seems like a bit of an overreaction to forgetting the cheese, but I guess Italians do take their cheese pretty seriously. And here's a close-up of the final product. To be honest, the sauce looks a bit on the drier side. I probably could have added more pasta water or simply reduced the sauce less. Regardless, I'm sure it should still taste okay. And now, since I have an entire bottle of wine that I need to finish, I guess I'll just use it as a drink. The pasta is very meaty, which is rather unsurprising. And overall, I definitely say it's one of the better meat sauces that I've tried. Although, to be honest, I haven't tried that many.
Is this Bolognese takes you all the way back to Bologna, please let me know.
I've never been to Bologna, so I'm not sure it takes me back. But on a scale of 7 to 15, I'd say this is a solid 13 and a half. And I definitely recommend giving it a try if you have the time. Anyways, that's all I have for now. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and leaving a like and comment to support the channel. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day.